I wish I knew how to get rid of that. Good evening, everyone. Gonna do a couple simple projects on a snowy kind of a day. And Marty been out here working for half the afternoon as it is. So it's time to do something a little simpler. Make a couple mallets. Try and figure out what's wrong with this one mallet head. I did this as a demonstration for a woodworking group the other evening. It did not. I drilled it on the drill press, and I've never done that before. I'm not sure what the story is. Definitely doesn't run true right there. We'll see what happens when I put the drill bit back in and see if I might just have to drill it to the next size hole. Definitely enlarging that hole a little bit. I don't know quite what's wrong with that picture, why it would do that. The other ones that I made a little while ago, this is actually how I drilled them. I just turned it to a cylinder and grabbed it in the chuck. So I don't know quite what went wrong. We'll figure it out here though. Figure something out anyhow. The face seems to run true. I think it had something to do with the drilling on the drill press. Didn't necessarily get a great undercut on this one anyway. So just did a little undercut. Cut that edge back a little bit. Just now I'm gonna have to return it a little bit to get rid of the chuck marks. It needed a little returning anyhow. By virtue of it did not overly cooperate on some situations. Should be pretty simple. So it was between centers, so we'll just go back between centers. I need to take a little bit, there's a little bit of sapwood still in it. Not that that would hurt anything, I don't think. Except that sapwood would be a little bit softer, maybe. Yeah, well, I'm gonna have to go clean up some more snow before the day is over. So yeah, I figured I'd get a jump start on it. So my wife said, "I can't believe you're not gonna go out and clean up the snow now." I said, "Well, I can because I don't feel like it. It's cold out there." The dumb thing runs nice and true though. All you gotta do is get rid of some chuck marks. How much snow you got down there? Getting close to a foot by now? Okay, chuck marks gone. Did not get a clean cut across the end the other night, so we're gonna do that. Window gouge. Tool handle would be a good thing. Where's the razor blade? That should be about that. Quick sand. Better to be early than late. Got in trouble last week because I was late, so I'll be early this week. And next week there'll be nothing. Yeah. Oh, it's warmer down there than it is here, I think. I didn't look at that lately. It's darn cold here. I was out this morning and it's 10. I was out this morning and cleaned up about, I don't know, 10:30, something like that, 10:30. It was downright cold. Now, that's what I told my wife, and she said about, she thought I would go out and clean up the driveway before I come down here to do this live stream. And I opened the front door and looked out. I'm like, she goes, I don't think it's doing much. I said, it's not. But I said, what it's doing is sleep. And I said, I'll just keep that nice, light, fluffy snow on top of that, or underneath that sleep. That way, when I go to blow the snow off, it'll do about, it'll be easier. Yes, there'll be no streaming next week. I will be on the road. We're going to go down to the Tennessee Wood Turning Symposium in Franklin, Tennessee next weekend. Oh yeah, it's light and fluffy. Yeah. I don't know that I used my snowblower last year at all, but I got to use it a little bit this year so far. Okay, what do we want to put on it? Let's put a little linseed oil on it first. And we'll put a little beeswax on it. That's kind of a shop project kind of a thing. And this I'll probably just take next month back down to that meeting and give it away. Not really a giant fan of this linseed oil stuff, but it does work. A lot of people like it. It definitely makes it turn it dark, but we'll put some beeswax in it. I think it does help the beeswax a little bit as far as absorbing in, but can't say that for sure either. Does give it a nice smooth finish though. But once again, we have an oily rag instead of a nothingness kind of a rag. But that's that part done. Almost done. We'll have to sand the nub off the bottom of it eventually. So we'll go to our handles. We'll need no cones. Don't need no cone center for that. Block it actually goes cut halfway square. This is going to be a mallet. The yellow part that I just did that last little bit to, that's the head of it. Be more of a wood carver's mallet, I would call them. Woodworkers. Bang on a chisel or something like that. Myself, for me, I like the ones with a bigger head on them than that. For putting drive centers and such things in. They're sort of a popular kind of a handle with those people that are into the hand tool world. Not really one of those kind of guys either. I like the one older gentleman's philosophy at the woodcraft store many years ago. His philosophy was if it didn't have a power cord on it, he didn't necessarily want it. kind of, in a lot of ways, agreed with him. Might be different nowadays that I'm retired, but I'm still waiting for the day when I get up and don't have a whole list of things to do. So far, that hasn't happened. So, got a funny one for you too. Supposed to be picking up. We bought a camper. We're gonna do some traveling this summer. Use a camper in that fashion, and we were scheduled to pick that thing up tomorrow. They called yesterday, and my wife's like, "Yeah, no, we're not going anywhere tomorrow." I said, "They're gonna be lucky if it gets picked up this week, period. If the weather cooperates on Tuesday, then that would be fine." I said, "But after that, I said, we're heading to Tennessee probably Wednesday." Some good old splintery wallet there. We got the other root. Go long point down, keeps it from splintering at all. Not quite round. Now we're round. Well, the shavings come off the skew. That's probably the best part about using the skew is the shavings that comes off. Kind of a pain in some ways, though. They like to seem to be like staticky that they want to stick to things, but kind of all about not doing as much sanding. So get our depth here. We'll keep that handy. We're going to need that. So there's our bottom. The other night I'm so used to doing things differently that I marked it on the opposite side of where the bottom was. And of course, get to look dumb and a little long for the piece, which for a demonstration it didn't necessarily matter too much. They were more interested in, for whatever reason, on how to use a skew. Because even at the woodworking club, there's quite a few people that own a lathe or are trying to learn some of that stuff. Make that shade big. Okay, so now we got it marked on both ends. That's all we need. And the tool rest up. Back to the smaller skew. Page on close. Little chamfer on the end. I can give it a little bit more of a chamfer because it shouldn't fit. It does slide up over the chamfer. That's about as far as it's going to go though. Got a couple spins that'll show me a nice burnish line in there. I don't want this to be a not super tight fit. Just a fit. I can just sort of continue on with that peeling cut. It's sort of a very controlled kind of a cut for doing something like that. It's also very easy to make it relatively straight. So leaving some marks all the way up through there. Like I said, I don't want it to be super duper tight. I want that a bit undercut up there though. And now it fits the whole way in, which is what it should do. And it fits nice and flat. The other one, I should go get that other one out of the, anyway, get the other one out of the bin. It went in the old trusty firewood bin. I used my Jet 1221, which kind of was his maiden voyage, and quite honest with you, I didn't necessarily take the time and trouble to check. I looked at the centers. Must have been, it was definitely something in this drill bit must have wandered a bit in there whenever I was doing with it. So that works. Get rid of a little goober in there, just because it'll bug me if I don't. I kind of like these to be pretty simple-minded. So Cove probably going to end up about there. A little safer to do it with the spindle gouged in this view. I'll trim this stuff just a shade there. I'll leave a little bit of a square up there, I think, on this one. Kind of just because, I guess. The rest comes back up. And it's got to end right about there. And of course that'll be too fat. It's probably still too fat, but we're going to see around this off down here. This needs to come back down. Wonders of using a skew is you gotta sort of have to keep messing around with the tool rest height. I'm not really fit at making these because I have big hands, so it feels even a bit fat for my hand. Not to should have stopped and checked that before. Good enough. Good enough to give it away, right? So, like always, back to sanding. That's all I've gotten done. Not to show you the projects we're working on for the boss. These are a lidded bowl, I guess you would call them. That's what I would call them. She's teaching a class in dot painting. If you've ever heard of that, know what it is. Usually she just does them on a flat disc type thing, but this time she decided that she wanted these little bowls with the lid on. So that's my latest and greatest project. And the bowl itself is made out of poplar. Well, the bowl and the lid. I had plenty of poplar lumber, but I didn't have no 8-quarter poplar, so I had to go buy a 8-quarter board the other day. Which is something I don't do is buy too much of that kind of materials. But it's a good thing when you when working for Woodcraft, because the people that own it also own a lumber store. So I was able to get it at the really nice price of being an employee, which was nice. Still wasn't cheap, but wasn't quite as much as what I thought it could have been. But I sanded through 400. Last step's going to be to go with the grain on something like this. This I probably will actually finish this as a finished piece rather than just a beeswax, and then I'll put the oil and wax on this part of it. I think that'll work. There's a noise maker. Listen to that all day. This kind of the downfall. That's the part I don't like when you work with the kiln dried wood. It always seems to be so much more dust, so much dustier than anything else that I'm used to. Can we do? If I can just do this, do that. It's going to take it down into nothingness. Easy enough. And I think, unfortunately, I might have to actually change chuck jaws, probably. I can grab that eventually, because I'll still need to sand a little bit down this end. Rather than being a hero, we just go back to our spindle gouge. Get rid of a whole bunch of material before we get down to nothingness. Down to about a 16th and it just falls off. You didn't happen to partake in Cindy Drozda's um, paid demonstration yesterday with the heart-shaped box? Thought it was kind of an interesting thing. I almost just said the hell with it yesterday and took the afternoon off and partook in that, but I'm like, too many other things going on. Thought it was an interesting project. I would be more curious as to how she drew the heart shape to start with. I saw a picture of it on social media, what she was going to do. Looked kind of neat. But I know her, it was very small. She don't do anything of any size. Which I don't think a project like that, I don't think you'd want very big. I've been working on stuff with the 3D printer. There's tons of stuff out there to get and just print off of somebody else. Somebody else has designed it or whatever. But if you have the inkling of maybe selling a few of those things, it's where you would get into licensing things or whatever. So I've been back to working on with SketchUp, which is still actually a free program. It's just web-based now instead of downloadable free. So I've been designing some things. Did some center finders, like this little guy here. I sort of copied their dimensions to a point and made a bunch of them. I figured that's something simple and nice to be able to maybe give away at some of my classes or something along those lines. I do have a class coming up. I kind of got talked into doing a multiple day class rather than just a single 1 day project kind of class. And do a class. The first one's going to be 2 days, 6 hours a day. I think the people will learn more First one I actually scheduled, um, I didn't schedule it till March, and it's in the evenings, which I sort of, after I scheduled it, I'm like, I shouldn't have scheduled it in the evenings, because then somebody at the store has to stay, because at that point I didn't have no keys or combination, or be able to set the alarm and things like that, and I don't know if that was a good thing on my part or not, but the guy that does the scheduling of the class, he's like, well, you got to schedule some more. I'm like, well, I don't want to be screwing your, these basically my fellow employees, because they're almost all of them are retired people like me. And it's like, I don't want to make them stay for an hour and a half or so every, because that's going to be 2 days, 2 consecutive days. And he's like, give me a little time. He says, we'll solve that problem. I'm like, how are you going to do that? He's like, well, I'll talk to the owner. He said he'll give you the key and set you up with a combination to the alarm, and then you can do whatever you want. You can stay here half the night if you want, or come in early in the morning or whatever before the store opens. And I'm like, oh, kind of like open mouth, insert foot. But we'll see how it pans out. Now, with the standard jaws on it, and that end should be flat. It will grip down to that 1.25 inches. True enough to sand. I could even cut a little bit on the end of that too. Give it a little hand support. Just gently take a little sliver off the very end so it's not pointy. This is one of those times. This is my 3/8 spindle gouge. Very short handle. Makes it makes it super easy to do the simple things like that. Sort of fine detail work, fine further detail kind of work, without a big handle in the room. A little bit of finish sanding and we'll be done. Since we're going to finish it in super glue, might as well sand it all the way up to 600, maybe even more heavy, a little 800 on it. Boy, it'll be super smooth. bit of the random orbit. Kind of sandy. We'll break up those little fine scratches. Leave that on because we got to do the end, other end. Paper towel works wonders to suck the dust out of them, especially something like this. You see the amount of dust and dirt it pulled out. All right, we'll give it a shot of super glue. This time we're going to use some of the 3460. Same principle as the 3408, just a shade bit heavier, thicker. Not to mention I got a little carried away on what I ordered over a year ago on that particular misprint here. This stuff is actually outdated. It's over a year old. So I don't necessarily trust selling it to somebody. I just use it myself. Walnut's very thirsty too. So this will really help seal the soak it in. And you can see we put lots on. I'll let it soak in. And just like the others, we'll wipe off the excess. This actually has a longer longer time before it starts to set up too. Instead of being 40, it's like 45 seconds or so. Still pulling dirt off, which is a good thing. You want to dry it. This one wouldn't matter. This one you could actually, if you wanted to, you can put multiple coats on, like the pen turners of the world like to do. This would be the one to do that with. That's all there is to it. One and done. We'll activate it even a little bit. At a distance. Nothing up close and personal. And then we'll set that off to the side for a little bit. And the top leaves me a pretty good sized nub in the middle. Could be creative. Not that one. Lots of these little. It's too big. Lots of little blocks that get saved for the stupid stuff. Doesn't really need to be that long. That's even the wrong jaws. This is kind of some of the leftover stuff from making tops for one. And whatever else came along that it needed that for. So should be able to make a cone. At least that's the plan. So if I'm wrong about that, should be more than sufficient. Now we'll see whether we can actually get enough drive force on it. To at least get some of that off of there. Like I say, this is Osage orange because it would actually be rather difficult to actually sand that off. That'll be more than enough drive. I don't want to put too much pressure on it. That lovely cracking sound would not be a good sound to hear right about now. At least it's going to get rid of some of it. I could have used a pointier one. Could have got it. Let's be bravely stupid. See if we can send something flying. I'll use a cone center rather than what I would normally use. This will allow me to get the whole way in there. That goes further in there anyhow. You know, the likes of Richard Graffin, he would probably just go ahead and cut right across there, but had some bad experiences where things get jammed in there, and I'd rather leave that tiny little bit. Little nub is going to sand off in a couple seconds flat, so sort of becomes an issue of do you be bravely stupid, as I would consider that, or just take the couple seconds out just to sand that last little bit. First now the question is, can we find a piece of relatively coarse? Seems like 240 is about all she wrote. I don't have much sandpaper in the 2-inch anymore. As always, it almost takes longer to get the stuff out to do the little bit of work, but did a good job. Some of that Merca sandpaper. I grew up using that for cabinet work all them years, and I found the Rhino brand sandpaper and haven't looked back on that since. It just doesn't seem to last very well. I also use the same old dirty rag, put a little linseed oil on the center of that, and we'll call that done. Well, it'll all be the same color, just no real wax on the end, but that will work. And there's a mallet. Sort of a wood carver's type mallet. It's not super heavy. Doesn't really need to be for the most part of what they would use it for. We'll let that set up for a while before I go after it to buff it. Now, oh, you know what I was going to do? We're going to do a bottle opener. This is one of those situations where I made a whole bunch of these several years ago. I thought they would sell. And like anything else you think will sell, that think you would think would sell, don't. And this one actually has some resin in it. So this piece has been stabilized as well. The reason I'm putting it the whole way on so I can mark this top is this is the insert piece. And of course, should be a weatherman. Can always be wrong and nobody knew. What are they going to do? Anything wrong with these? Any kind of pain in the you know what? They believe in having threads quite long on them. They're actually longer than what the normal tap that I have for that kind of thing. I actually had some, it's about the right size in there. Some horrible freight ones that I bought many, many years ago. Which are smaller in diameter in the shaft. So I'm able to actually, I only need a little bit. Some of the first ones I made, I just took the hacksaw to them and cut a quarter of an inch off of them because they were that quarter of an inch too long. This will need support. This is some beech. Like I said, it has been stabilized. It's got, you may not be able to see it quite right at this moment, but you will be able to in a little bit once you get it all shaped up and sanded and that. It had a section of wood missing, which is what I was after. So this has the use some black 5-minute epoxy and cover that area with the epoxy, and then that's chameleon flakes on top of that while it's still wet. And then they stick to it very nicely. It's been a while since I turned into this stuff, but it's kind of different stuff to work with. Cannot be very aggressive with it. Especially once it actually gets to round. Once it gets totally round, then we may have to turn the dust. Well, this one should be alright because it's not all resin. When you work with the ones that's all resin, then you almost have to run the dust collector because this stuff does not break like wood. It can give you one continuous stream, which becomes a problem. As you can see, it wants to wrap around the live center very quickly, like that. So it sort of becomes a distraction. I would think it's not overly great for the live center as well. Just trying to think of what, I don't remember what for shape I did with these. I think I'll just do a little chamfer up here. I get down fairly close to my manual. And that's just about where the line was at. Don't need to go completely down to it, just close. See how close, I guess we can get in there a little closer. See a little bit more what we're doing. There we go, up close and personal. A trusty little brush. Them strands do not break. That's the pain of it. So, along Sleeping Cove. Bring up the speed a little higher will help. It feels like I should go sharpen that spindle gouge too. Turning stabilized wood is a bit different. It makes it a little bit more, a little bit harder. So I think I'll go over here quick like. See whether the grinder, yeah, we're in view. This spindle gouge has been used pretty much all afternoon doing little stuff. The stuff that I was working on, so. Just a little short trip to the grinder. And these are the blocks that we're making for the setup for the platform. I have the degrees on them and all that. They work pretty well. I was kind of pleasantly surprised. And shorten up this bevel considerably. Make my bevel about 1/8 of an inch long. Gives it a little less resistance to turn these tighter coves. I sort of true this up a bit first. Not necessarily running exactly true. We'll work on making a nice long sweeping curve. The other thing that works really kind of works well on this kind of stuff is actually just a plain old scraper, negative range scraper. We'll get the basic shape and then we'll probably go over it a little bit. Probably should just quit while you're behind, because it's the more resin is there, the more it's going to want to be uncooperative a little bit. So it's just as easy just to use a negative rate scraper. The only difference is going to be this actually has a burr on it. At least it felt like there was a burr on it. I will remove that burr. Almost looks like a skew. Yeah, that one there you probably could almost use as a skew, except it's not ground exactly even. So I'll just take the diamond hone, go over it a couple times on each cutting bevel. And now it'll actually just be sharp. We want to cut about center, maybe a little above center. Just flat on the torus. It'll be very friendly to the resin. Also getting a little lumpy and bumpy in there. It's been a while since I've worked with any of this. Let's try our skew and see whether it will cooperate. I don't remember right. I think it used to cooperate fairly well with this though. Although I hear it snapping. Not a good sound to hear. Also it doesn't want to slide across this stuff very nicely either. But there again, our skew is nothing more than a sharp edge. Placed it Y sharp. So we could use that gently. Oh, that don't sound good. It sounded like it just snapped a big piece out. It sure did. Little bugger. Oh, we gotta take it down and get below that. Let's back this spin about. See if I can go back across it and see if it'll, see if we can get rid of it without breaking more of it out. Still there. Oh, well, I don't know. It's probably on my end. Our internet last night, we were watching some stuff on TV. They seemed to want to do some of that last night too. Of course, they'll blame it on the snowstorm. Just about there. Uh, I don't, I don't know. I wouldn't say I hate winters. I like it a whole lot better now that I'm retired. I don't have to worry about having to go out and drive in it. Speaking of things you dislike, is the resin has to wrap around everything. And it sticks to your fingers when you pull it off. Always another pleasure to it. A little bit more left in there. Can't say that I know where McKee, I've heard of McKeesport. Can't say that I know where that would be. It almost looks like it didn't adhere very well right there in that little area. Well, this one might be a royal pain in Okay. Ah, so you know all about that snow. Actually, my last tour of duty for being on the road. I guess I'm just gonna have to fill that in with super glue and hope for the best. Not really what I wanted to do with it. And it seems like I don't know. I never had any trouble with it healing. Yeah, like I say, I spent enough time over the years working for UPS, a couple different, uh, we would call them jobs, runs that we had were going to New Stanton. Nice ride, but come wintertime, it was kind of, you know the drill. Plenty of, plenty of snow. Oh, okay. Yeah, know right where you're at. Like I said, I did a couple tours out there. Back to the scraper and trying to get back past that where it wants to chip. And that will fill in with super glue, but not necessarily the way I wanted to do. Almost got a little bit out of there. Kind of makes for a little bit of a slow tedious kind of a process to do it like this. One thing that would help it. I know the further down here, the more resin there is. So any of it that flies up in the air will end up in the dust collector. Especially down here on the end. It's going to be the very end of this thing is pure resin. As you can see what it wants to do. We might as well cut back a little further than what we are. Don't necessarily want to hit my live center now. Flag seems like it's fairly pretty long, so I think I'll go back a little bit further yet. Put back far enough. I think that's far enough back. Stuff wraps tight too. Get a little bumpiness going on here. Of course, the next really bad part is to have to get the hallway into there. I don't do a whole lot of it. Although I have a fair amount sitting around here that I've cast. I'd rather do them. It's more fun to do this part of it than actually turn it, which is where that sort of came about many moons ago. I need to get it down to its shape. its final shape anyhow. You also have to watch when you're grabbing a hold of this stuff because it can be very sharp. I think I'm going to have to just go for the gusto and be gentle. Make sure we're about center. Right. Let's go to shadow. Now, once you get it to the point like right here, all my force is going pretty much towards the headstock. That's okay. Because that's where we're at. Not going for any sort of super fancy shape, because I don't need it. Now I'm going to have to go get me a cup of water. If I sand this stuff wet sand this stuff, all this kind of stuff, it just works so much easier and better. So I will be right back. I'm going to go over in the other room and get me a cup of some water. And then we'll get this thing sanded up and finished up, and might just call it a day. So I'd go move more snow. Let's use a little color, I guess. Here. 31. I've done some fairly good sized stuff with this, with the resin stuff before. Times past. The bigger stuff usually is a little bit more friendly than this small, like handle type stuff. I try not to sand with too, would have been nice if I'd have been, maybe took a little bit more time and been a little bit more patient with that down in there, because I left some bumps in there. Otherwise, I would normally try and start with like 220. This is actually 180. As long as you keep it nice and wet. Let's see if a nice slurry of crap comes off of it. Doesn't clog up the sandpaper. And there's no dust. You can see that this is, like I say, this wood has been stabilized using cactus juice. So even when you sand over it with water like that, it really isn't, it doesn't absorb the water or very little of it. It sands really nice and easy when you're sanding with water too. It's kind of nice to be able to, some ways it'd be nice to be able to sand some other projects using water. Of course, you'd be like Carl Jacobson the other night and sand with the oil, but to me, I think that would be messy. But it would be dust free. I've seen other people do that too, sand with using like the walnut oils and things like that. But I can't say I'm a fan of the walnut oil. I mean, I'm sure it's good stuff as far as that goes, but when you're selling your work, there's all them people out there that have the nut allergies. Of course, I know Mahoney claimed that his walnut oil, since it was processed in whatever way it was processed, would not be create the allergic reaction to nuts. No, well, that'd be cute. That sounds like you were using some good imagination. It's kind of another one of my, I don't know what you want to call it, dumb fascinations would be to try and learn how to carve using a knife. I haven't been doing much of it lately, but there's a one of the guys at Woodcraft that's actually a certified instructor in carving that was helping me with it. But it's kind of fun in a way, I guess. Like everything else can be a little frustrating, but it's also something that I can do. I don't need to be down here in my shop to do it. Matter of fact, I don't do it down here. I actually do it in the living room, sitting in my easy chair with a nice big old shop apron across my lap. But it can be sort of expensive, just like a lot of the wood turning stuff. It's kind of another one of them scenarios of, a lot of people complain about some of the wood turning tools are, oh, everything is so expensive. I'm like, well, nothing is free. I said, but if you think that's expensive, don't ever even remotely take up the thought of wood carving. Although you don't need as many, technically, you don't need as many tools. But I know the knife that I use, of course, it's another one of them, almost all of them, all the really good ones are handmade by somebody. That daggone little knife was $65 for a knife that only has a 2-inch blade on it. And then they want to carve using basswood. But once again, I don't know if that isn't sanded good enough. There's the connoisseurs of the good basswood around the country, which all of them want to talk about northern Wisconsin, Minnesota. So I can pretty much guarantee you when I'm out there level up in the fall, I'll be definitely checking out some sources of basswood out there because it's if you get some stuff like local for us, reasonably local, so a lot of them carving guys say it's much harder. They want the stuff that's basically in the in would have grown in the cold climates rather than in our warmer climate that we would have compared to them. It never got done. I never tried that. Tried the chainsaw one. I don't. I don't know. For me, I don't necessarily have the, I guess, the knack or the vision or whatever. I'm not that far away from you. Okay, so that's to 1,000. Thing with the resin though is that you got to sand it really quite fine. I don't like to do that. So I will cheat on that scenario and get it dried off. Build up some heat, dry the moisture off. Doesn't look like much like that for sure. Now, one other little tidbit we're going to have to do. Unthread it, drop it on the floor. At least it's a rubber pad so it doesn't ding anything up when I do that. I'm going to grab some wax, put a little coat of wax on that mandrel. Because if I get any super glue that would run down over there onto that face, would get down into the threads that go with it, I would be in trouble. I also could leave it off a little bit, off the threads a little bit too. A little wax, because wax and super glue are not friends. Might have dropped it on the floor, but got it covered in dust now. Let's go for the gusto. I don't like it wobbling around on me. Let's spin just in case. This one here, since it had some of those little bad spots in it, I may just do the multiple coats on it. We'll see. Because once again, this will actually get sanded back again. with the real fine polishing kind of sandpaper. So I get it on there as smooth as I can. But now you'll get to see what it's going to look like when you did that, the reflective qualities of that stuff. I think the first coat, I think I'll just wipe as much of that back off. I never get it on real smooth, even wiping it a little bit like that. There's probably was a place right there that it's set up on me a little quicker than what I wanted it to. So we will make it set up. Just give it a little activation. The active problem with the super glue and this doing this kind of stuff, the activator stays behind. There's places already that can feel that it's already rough. So it tells me it's setting up quickly. But as long as you let the super glue cure like you should, we'll come back after that till another day, maybe tomorrow, see how things go tomorrow. And I'll resand it. The only difference being is I will probably start at 600, something like that. Basically sand it back flat. See, that's already set up. It's rougher than I'll get out. This is probably what, this is one of the reasons I don't like doing pens. Although the last couple pens that I did, I would just do one coat like this, let it soak in, wipe off the excess just like I would do on any other project with the Parfix glue, and let it sit, then come back and buff it, call it a day. Not quite the super plastic shine that you would get with multiple coats, but it was a whole lot easier than doing this multiple coat thing and sanding it back. We'll hit that activator one more time because I want to pull it off that mandrel. I don't want to leave it on there overnight. The longer we leave it, the worse we could be in trouble if any. Pretty careful not to dribble down over that edge, but quite rough. Little place there is a little tacky yet. But even though it's sort of rough, it's going to give you the idea of what it's going to look like when it's sanded back and polished. Still tacky in places. It's the other problem with putting multiple coats on things. If you get too impatient, if you get impatient with it, then it takes longer yet to dry. I don't see any dribbles down over the mandrel, so I think we're good on that situation. The downfall sanding with wet wet sanding thing is then you're left with wet pieces of sandpaper to have to try and lay out somewhere to let dry without making a mess. And a wet towel. That is some beach. The old guy that used to be around at our turning club. Now he's 90, couple years old. He now lives out in Butler, PA, with his daughter. I think he said it was. Um, Friend of his, actually, it was the guy that he was living with, took a huge beech tree. This thing was, oh my God, I hate to say how big it was around at the base. It was probably between 3 and 4 foot diameter on the base. Um, and they were slabbing it using a chainsaw mill. At that time he had still had a chainsaw mill, and they were slabbing it. And I went down to get some other pieces of wood, and he had a couple of the initial slabs because they take off a couple inches to get down to good usable material. But um, I picked up a couple of them slabs from them, and it was really kind of neat material in a way. I did a couple um, like shallow plates out of it. I have a bunch more of stuff for like handles and things like that. Um, it turns really nice. Some of it had some. I mean, this has a little bit of color to it. It's not super dramatic. It's got a little spalting in it. And just want to make sure I get it off of there. Like I say, that's like putting your fingers across 80 grit sandpaper right there. It's that rough. Hey, how we doing tonight, Billy? You showed up just in time to be done. uh, Billy, I'll show you what little bit we did. Made a mallet first off. Finished a mallet really. How to make the handle for it. More of a wood carver's type mallet. So we finished that up when we did the handle. And now we're going to be done because we started early tonight. That it is. That it is. Piece of Osage. I had a couple of them. A couple that I did. Um, Actually, the other two of them that I did are at the market. Um, but yeah, it's Osage. I think I only have one more piece of that left. It looks neat now, but I got some of that, I don't know, many years ago. My wood supplying guy that um, now is too old to do any of it or whatever. We had got some of that from him years ago. I turned some bowls out of it and things like that. But the problem with any of that stuff, the Osage, I also have some black locust, which is what I probably should be doing the mallets out of the black locust because it's even harder and heavier. Um, Bright yellow when you turn it, and that piece of Osage has some linseed oil and beeswax on it, so it probably won't take very long for it, but it'll turn brown. And it's not really even a pretty shade of brown as far as I was concerned. So I never really got too excited about getting any more of it. It cracks quite quickly as well. Oh, I was going to show Al what we were working on today. This is the project for my wife. These are poplar, 8/4 poplar. They're just a little round, kind of oval shaped, kind of a bowl. Inside is actually finished. The outside of this will get painted black. It also gets, I have I actually have all seven of the bases done. I only have one of the lids done because this is for a class that she's teaching, doing the dot painting. Um, so I have six more lids to do for these, but I kind of had enough of doing, this is some kiln dried poplar. So it's really, I mean, the dust collector is running the entire time, the whole day, because it is very dusty. Like I say, I got the lids to do yet, but hopefully tomorrow, the next day, we'll get her done. Get them out of the hair, get them out of my hair. So, at any rate, thanks for stopping by, Billy. But we're gonna call it a day. Something you don't have to deal with. Well, you got rain probably down there out of this storm. Um, we're probably close to a foot of snow so far today. So I gotta go. I did it once, and I'm gonna go back out here when I'm done here and do some more of it tonight yet. So this means I have less tomorrow to do. So yeah, of course. Like I say, the greatest job in the world is to be a weatherman because you can be wrong every day and still have a job. All the weather for all the weather people around here said it was going to be done by the. Did you? Okay. All right. Yeah. Well, that would be a heat wave for us right now here in Big Mechanicsburg, Pennsylvania. It is 11 degrees, and that's probably the high for the day. I don't think it ever got warmer than that. It looks like this, at least for us, this storm is pretty much done for us. Well, we might get a little bit more later, but not much. Yeah. So, and I will not be here tomorrow or next week. I'm going to be down at the Tennessee Wood Turning Symposium. So there'll be no live stream on Sunday. Most likely will not be there Wednesday night either because I think that's the day we're going to travel. Yeah, well, it's our weather for us is not going to get above freezing through, I think they said next week sometime, maybe at best. So, yeah. All right. Oh, that's what it kept, that's why I kept it so nice and light and fluffy. And so, yeah, that's kind of unusual for it to snow when it's, usually when it's this cold, it really don't get to snow, but I, I don't know. So, at any rate, we'll see you guys in about a week and a half or so. So have a good night and stay safe.